Many of whom you know. This meeting is not about AMICC, but if you are interested, there are brochures and cards on the table in the back. I don't usually address meetings like this from a written text, but I'm doing it on this occasion because I want to make sure that I don't run over the 10 minutes or so that I've allotted to myself for the beginning of this session. Basically, I'm going to do a short background presentation which will serve as a context for the questions and answers, the questions and comments and observations and discussions to which most of this meeting will be devoted. Matthew and I look forward to that discussion. He will lead it, and then at the end we will have a short wrap-up at the end of any remaining topics that we think should have been touched on but weren't in the course of the discussion. And we promise to get everybody out of here at 7:30. We'll stay around for a few minutes for a while afterwards in case any of you want to linger and maintain a discussion. The basic premise of this discussion and this presentation is that the Obama administration, sharply different from its predecessor, is very favorably inclined toward the International Criminal Court in principle. Most of its officials with senior responsibility for the International Criminal Court, such as State Department legal advisor Harold Koh and war crimes advisor in the ambassador in the State Department Stephen Rapp, were strong supporters of the court in previous careers, and they have brought that viewpoint with them into government. However, the administration and these men have been very cautious about how to implement the inclination in principle toward the court. The administration insists on military participation in an agreement with the formal policy on relations with the ICC that the administration is now creating. I want to emphasize to you, since there have been rumors that the administration, the U.S. government, had given up on the creation of this policy, that in fact it's going forward. There are people working on it now, and many members of the rather large U.S. delegation that's here now will go back to use what they have learned and seen here in their participation for their different parts of government in the creation of this policy. We expect that it will be available and be formally promulgated before the end of the year. In addition to being very careful about the viewpoint of the military, the Obama administration must have the tolerance, at least, if not the support of Congress for the new policy when it emerges. On the question of Congress, there is a great deal of misinformation, uninformation, ignorance, presuppositions that are incorrect in Congress, but there is also a lot of interest in Congress in the kinds of cases and situations that the court deals with, and this leads them to the court and to a more favorable impression. Darfur is, of course, the main and most important indication of this. There is a lot of support and interest in Congress about Darfur. There is a Save Darfur campaign, which, as many of you know, involves millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of people, which has been extremely successful. The people who run that campaign recognized a couple of years ago that you can't talk about Darfur, you can't act on Darfur unless you acknowledge and work with the place of the ICC on that issue. And we're beginning to see that happen on other issues in Congress as well. And there has been a good deal of congressional legislation that's become law on issues like the Lord's Resistance Army, which just recently became law, genocide, crimes against humanity, and child soldiers, to mention just a few. Moreover, the administration, despite its caution, has taken some further substantial steps toward the court already, while this policy is still being negotiated within the government. For example, the administration reversed a previous decision by deciding instead to participate in the November Assembly of States Parties session and in this review conference. It has begun to help the ICC with most of its cases and has begun consultations with the prosecutor on how to extend and regularize this sort of ad hoc assistance into a continuing relationship. Perhaps most important to show the progress that the administration has made is the National Security Strategy Report, which was released 2 weeks ago by the government. This is a very formal, very large document, which is signed by the President, and it was largely drafted in and agreed to by the Department of Defense, among other parts of the government. A passage in this report commits the United States to the fight against impunity and to cooperation with the ICC in specific terms, naming the court. These commitments about the fight against impunity and cooperation with the ICC are explicitly related to main themes in the report about the Obama foreign policy. These are themes such as a preference for multilateralism and multilateral approaches in dealing with major international problems, a commitment to act against atrocities and impunity, including through the use and support of international criminal justice, and in general support by the administration for the worldwide rule of law. And there are extensive rule of law programs now in the foreign aid and international relations parts of the U.S. government. Most of you are generally familiar with U.S. concerns and reservations about the court, but please feel free to ask us about any aspect of them. I might say that among the faces here, I recognize a number of you who know a great deal about the U.S. and the court already, and I apologize for repeating to you things that you already know, but in an audience like this, you have a variety of interests and perspectives on the court, and I need to respond to all of them.